Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I want to talk to you about Mahatma Gandhi. In 2 days, on October 2nd, most of India will celebrate the birthday of Gandhi. It is recognized as national holiday. It's a Gandhi Jayanti, the birth of Mahatma Gandhi. If there are two things that are deeply associated with India, if you were to ask most people in the world to name two things about India, they probably will mention Gandhi and the Taj Mahal. So I consider the Taj Mahal and Gandhi as constitutive elements of India and Indian identity. Gandhi is about Indian values, and Taj Mahal represents the beauty and the aesthetics of India. So the ethics of India are manifest in the life and the story of Gandhi, and the and the beauty of Taj Mahal represents the internal beauty of India itself. So that's why Gandhi to me is has always been very important when it comes to India and what India stands for. The story of India begins with Gandhi. India became an independent country from the British through a very unusual struggle for independence, which was non-violent. And that particular principle of non-violence was essentially a principle that Mahatma Gandhi held very close to his heart. He preached it, and most importantly, he practiced it. Gandhi was killed by he was assassinated by the first Indian terrorist, Nathuram Godse. Some of his followers still abuse and spread lies and hatred towards Gandhi. But Gandhi was a remarkable person. In, if you were to pick three people from the 20th century who have had a profound ethical impact on world politics, it would be Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and Nelson Mandela. These are people who have fought for freedom, for social justice, for equality, in the face of colonialism, imperialism, and essentially fundamental human inequality. Whether Gandhi was fighting for the rights of the Dalits or the marginalized Muslims in India, whether Martin Luther King was fighting for equality and the rights of African Americans in the US, Nelson Mandela fighting for blacks in South Africa. They were all fighting against not just oppression and occupation and colonialism, but a fundamental form of racism which treated some people as inherently superior and some people as inherently inferior. So I'm going to share with you what I have put together as eight, these are very well known and commonly held uh, principles of Mahatma Gandhi that everybody knows. These are the eight values of Gandhi, which he manifests in his life. I just wanted to talk about them today. So the most important principle that he's associated with is ahimsa, which means nonviolence. So there are two aspects to his nonviolence. One is that in the face of adversity, in the face of occupation, in face of absence of freedom, you respond to that in a nonviolent fashion. So when you struggle for your independence, when you struggle for your rights, when you struggle for truth and for justice, you do it in a non-violent phase. So no matter what, you do not use force. I mean, this is revolutionary, really, truly. I mean, look at the world today. There are lots of people fighting for justice. Very few are fighting for it peacefully. The fact that India did become independent as a result of his essential nonviolent uh, struggle is one of the greatest hallmarks of ethical politics in human history, no doubt about that. But the second aspect to nonviolence is to not respond to violence with violence. And one of those great moments was during the Salt March, when he marched for nearly 240 kilometers with a huge procession. Literally hundreds of thousands of people were marching with him. And when the British unleashed violence on them, they did not respond. There was such tremendous discipline It is unbelievable. Today, you can't have a religious march in India without it ending up in violence. But in the face of violence by the British, the masses simply didn't respond out of respect and belief in the Gandhian way. So he not only did not use force to fight for truth or justice, but he did not respond to violence with violence either. And truth was important to him. He talked a lot about truth, satya. But what is also interesting is that he combined truth with satyagraha. That means the way you do you struggle is in it's like making it's like a truth force, the force of truth, and that was to me quite remarkable. Now, none of these principles are like unique to him. He didn't invent them. They come from his belief in his religion, Hinduism, but these are principles that everybody talks about in every religion. But what is remarkable about Gandhi was he did not just talk about them, but he practiced them consistently every day in his life for decades. And not just in ordinary circumstances, not while living in a free liberal democracy with prosperity and opportunity, but under oppression, under occupation by a brutal colonial power. So it's harder to adhere to your principles and values when you are under fire. And that's the remarkable aspect of Gandhi, that he was able to live these principles while he was under fire. He talked about self-discipline and simplicity. His life was of self-discipline and simplicity. His clothes, he abandoned Western clothes. He was quite a dandy in his youth, but later in his life, he tried to live a very simple life with very little possessions in his ashram. Uh, you know, basically using the charkha for his own clothes. Uh, and yes, he tried to bring simplicity in his life. That was very important. He talked about simple living and high thinking. He talked a lot and showed how essentially civil disobedience and non-violence should be the way in which people deal with their governments, whether you are living under a foreign occupation or living in a government of your own choice, which has become authoritarian. Even in democratic societies today, we see um, uh, governments becoming undemocratic. And therefore, it is fundamentally important for us to essentially avoid nonviolence. Violence breeds violence. And today, here in the United States, we see that there are lots of people who are unhappy with some of the rules. And I hope that the example of Gandhi will instruct them in the way they respond to the challenges that they are facing. He talked about equality and social justice, and he really worked very hard for that. Minorities, whether they are Dalits, the untouchables in India, or Muslims in the post partition India, they were vulnerable, they were marginalized, they were politically weak, they were economically backward, and they were demonized in the society. And he stood with them again and again and again. There are very few people in the modern world, in the modern era, who have stood so steadfastly with those who have been on the margins, those who are the most vulnerable in society, as Mahatma Gandhi did. He believed in self reliance. That was quite interesting, This whole idea of making his own clothes was about Swadeshi movement. Today we call it Atmanirbharta in India. It's about becoming self reliant. And that was quite important to him as a person, as a society, and as a nation, that we should not be dependent on foreign countries. And that was important because India had just been occupied by a foreign nation for 100+ years. He believed in religious tolerance and harmony. There have been so many occasions when he's gone on fast to end violence. The partition left a horrible legacy in India. And the events that led to the partition and the partition itself, there was so much violence at that time. It was in that time that Gandhi repeatedly advocated for nonviolence and for religious harmony. And of course, he believed in service and compassion and he tried to show that every day in his life. I think many of these principles are still relevant, still important, and can still be impactful if adopted. Whether you are living in an authoritarian society or whether you're living in a democracy gone rogue, what you need to do is to stick steadfastly to the path of truth, and then indulge in civil disobedience in a non-violent way to protest with dignity and struggle for your rights. Do not give an inch. Do not sacrifice your rights or your principles. That's not the lesson. The lesson is not to use force. And I think that is the biggest lesson for our world today when we live in very violent times. Gandhi's message is very simple: avoid violence, avoid falsehood, stick to this truth, stick to peace, stick to tolerance. And as we celebrate Gandhi's birthday on 2nd October, let's take a moment and reflect on his life, and more importantly, on the principles that he taught and practiced, and try to bring them in our lives and in our societies. So, thank you for watching Conversations. Please, if you have not already subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share it with your socio political network. Until next time, I'm your host, Muqtadar Khan. Take care.